Hello everyone, welcome to the Watchalong for the Dutch Grand Prix weekend. We're today for practice 3. We will be here again later with qualifying, but for now, we've got the hour session where everybody will be getting in some last minute setup changes and stuff like that ready for that qualifying session. And it's raining apparently. I'll have to pass over in a minute to Zingy to let us know on that situation, but as we can see, we've got wet tyres for the only drivers that are on track at the moment. That is Bottas, Magnussen, and Hulkenberg. Bottas, I think, is he starting a lap? Anyway, looks like if the Haas has gone back into the pit lane immediately, and it looks like Bottas is doing the same, but Zhou's on his way out.
Yeah, Hulkenberg reported that it's time for intermediate tyres. He was just going out to check to see what the weather conditions were like, and it wasn't as wet as Haas expected it to be. It looks like, from the TV perspective, it does look very wet, but apparently the teams are already calling them in for inter, so perhaps it's drying up already, although it does look very misty, so it might take a while for the track to ramp up a bit. But yeah, as you say, it's not ideal conditions, and it's especially for qualifying. If it's going to be dry, then there could be some issues.
Piastri already on his way on that intermediate, talking about the weather in a bit. I'm going to go and double check the weather forecast in a second and see what we might get. As I said, I thought it was going to be about 50-50 for chance of rain in qualifying, but I also thought that there wouldn't be any rain in practice, so it might have changed. It definitely has changed. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, and it will mean that, well, I don't know. If it's dry for the race, then they've got virtually, not no testing, but they've had about an hour, 20 minutes of testing. They got a dry bit at the end of FP1, and they had a dry FP2. And if that is the case, then Hulkenberg is going to be not in a good place because they crashed out of that FP2 session. Unfortunately, I need to make sure that I try and keep it to practice 2, not FP2, because I don't want to get copyright strike by F1. You never know what they're going to do. Anyway, it's also Sainz and Ricciardo on into wets.
Sorry, Oscar Piastri. He was out in the intermediates. It's very wet, as you can see. Well, you can't see, but it's very wet, and he's went off at Arena there, just making a bit of a mistake. But he's back on track, fine now. Maybe damaging the floor a little bit. I'm not too sure, but it did look a bit rough. Skipping over the curb and that. So it is inters, but it's on that limit. You need to balance speed with consistency, and I think that obviously for people who know that intermediate will be faster in wetter conditions, but the issue is you have more chance of aquaplaning, which is basically you lose control of the car and you can just spin uncontrollably. So there is a balance between it, but Oscar looks so he's back on track and he's starting to push now and he looks confident as ever.
What corner was that mistake that he had?
Arena, it's the last sector split.
So he stayed out. He's continued. I don't know if he's on an in lap or whatever.
No, he's
but
pushing.
we've got Alonso and we've got Alonso and Sonoda, who are also on their way out. Alonso on the inters, but Sonoda is on the wet. So there's a couple of people trying to make different decisions here, and it's all a bit mixed up. I'm not entirely sure, as I said, what the situation is. I can't see it and make that decision for myself, but ultimately I'm not a F1 driver, so I can't make that decision either. We've got Stroll also coming out on the inters, and what's Magnussen doing? Are they also on the inters as well? So it looks like it is inters, but for some reason the racing balls have plopped on the wet tyres after all, although Ricciardo is back in the pit lane already.
Yep, Oscar just finishing his lap now. It's going to be a 1:24, I think, after 24.1. That puts him top. I think, he's the only person to really complete a competitive lap on circuit at the moment. It is still raining from the camera lens. You can see some droplets falling, so the rain won't be going anywhere anytime soon. And especially for qualifying, if it does stay wet, they've got a lot of data, of course. But if it does dry up, then you've got that issue of you've only really had an hour, which is obviously not a lot in comparison to what they usually would have, which is roughly 3 hours of practicing. So the issue lies, who do you think's had the most data ran in practice 2? And obviously you talked about Hulkenberg having that crash and he's going to struggle. Do you reckon he will still, or do you reckon he's still got that chance to outperform the car as he's been doing over the last few races?
Ultimately, he is an F1 driver, and it should be absolutely fine. They are paid a lot of money, so they should be expected to do well. Looking at practice 2, we do have a lot of laps from both McLarens, so they're going to be very, very prepared. Kevin Magnussen actually went and put some good work in as well. So, although Nico Hulkenberg only got those 10 laps in, there's 33 laps there from Kevin Magnussen, which is great to see for the Haas team. They kind of need that extra little bit right there. Other teams that don't have as much running, well, Sergio Perez did 29 laps, but other than that, lots of people have done very similar laps, but Carlos Sainz obviously seeming to have issues yesterday also didn't, so maybe Ferrari might have a bit of an issue on that side as well. So yeah, they're not going to be having the best of time. Where was Charles Leclerc in that? P9 yesterday, and that's a dry session, and it might be the only dry session that they get, so it's not going to look exactly ideal. Apparently we've got a yellow sector, is that right?
Not from what I can see. Now we do in sector 3. I think it's just a mistake, Aaron. I can't see anything as of yet. We're just on board with Alonso coming for the last corner, who's actually not purple. It's Lance Stroll who's purple in the middle sector, with Oscar going on to a new lap, and he's went purple in the first. So, oh no, there's a Haas of Nico Hulkenberg. He's made a mistake. I think that's just on the entry to arena. I think he's went into the wall and he's lost a bit of his front. He's actually lost basically all his front wing. It's dangling from the left-hand side, and the right-hand side is completely destroyed, so... Yeah, it looks as though the floor... Oh yeah, there's a bit of taking out the floor there as well. He's definitely got some damage to that car, and after the very, very poor running in FP2, that's not going to help him at all.
2 sessions with a crash, that is not only time but also money that they'll have to spend, and they don't want to really do that. Obviously, you don't want to do that anyway, but we've got the cost cap, so that's going to take away from any potential upgrades, not only for themselves, but the whole team. I don't exactly know how that would work, how they would distribute those resources to other teams. Is it kind of, if you crash, then that's your upgrades gone? I don't quite know, but yeah, that was the yellow flag that we saw there, and he just was kind of stationary for a little bit, letting some other cars go by, it seemed, but got back to it. And once again, Magnussen is going to be the one to put the work in. Looking at what Google says for for qualifying, it says it might be either no rain or it might be really rainy. It's also got a thunderstorm warning, so it's incredibly confusing.
Just getting that replay of Hulkenberg and coming into the last sector, he just slams on the brakes and the car just goes straight. He just doesn't have any grip at all. Right into the barrier. It looked like a rough incident, but he managed to get the car going. Not too much damage, of course, with the floor and the front wing, of course, but with that exception, it looks as though he's okay. And he should be back out on the track in 10 minutes or so, if there's not any internal damage that could be halting him in the future.
No internal damage, I'd assume, but you said floor damage. That isn't going to be ideal, especially in the rain. They would possibly be able to do some budget modifications to a floor on a weekend, unless they had a old floor that they could add to the car. Maybe they would be able to do that, but if that is the case, then it's not going to be exactly ideal. They'll have to get some heat guns on some extra carbon fibre to stick some things on if they need to do so. Right now we've got quite a few cars out on circuit getting these laps in, all on the intermediate tyres. The only wet tyre runners are all in the pit lane. I say that, Zhou is on his way out of the pit lane on wet.
Sorry, Norris made a massive slide coming into the bank session. I thought he crashed there, but he managed to keep it. There's been a lot of mistakes as of recently. You've been talking within the last minute or so. Magnussen going off at Tarzan corner, the first corner. And then we've seen, I think it was Alonso going off at Arena as well, but he didn't hit the wall. He was managing to slow it down enough. So it is treacherous out there. And although the intermediate is faster, Aaron, at what point do you take safety over pace in these conditions?
when you're about to crash. When you're about to crash, I guess. But talking about safety, apparently incident involving car 27, Hulkenberg noted, driving in an unsafe condition. So, have they been kind of noted for crashing the car and then joining back on the circuit, and they should have just parked it in the gravel? I don't know, that's an interesting one. I guess we'll find out in a few moments on what that actually is. It's a bit of a strange one, but it is what it is, and we'll see. Hopefully they can come back out again. Right now, we have got even more people out on the circuit. Russell's stationary at turn 1 though, so Zingy, you'll get to see that in a bit. Sorry for spoiling it for you there, but Russell seems to have an issue. They are moving again, but it might have just been a spin.
Maybe just a lock up. Yeah, I got that yellow now into sector 1. It looks so. I think it is just a mistake. Yeah, Russell off at turn 1. I think that should be fine though. I should say, and he's back up and running. Yeah, so just a bit of a lock up. We do say that this first corner is treacherous. Oh.
Red flag, as Logan Sargent has
Oh
spun
my
on the
goodness.
exit of turn 3 up to 4.
Oh,
That's,
his car's on fire.
that's not good. That is a hell of a distance to travel.
Oh my days, yeah. His rear's completely gone. The rear wing's gone. The chassis looks to be broken. There's a massive fire in the back of the car. I think he's okay. He says he's okay, and I think he's just getting out now. Yeah, I think I can see him getting out, so he's okay. Fans rushing to see what happened, but yeah. I'm not sure what happened. We'll get a replay in just a moment's time, but that is a massive crash. And Aaron, this is very important for the teams who didn't get much running in FP1 and 2, because obviously there's a red flag. The fire's getting worse actually. Logan Sargent now hopping out the car. He looks to be limping a little bit, maybe a bit winded as he leans over the guardrail. I think he's fine. Yeah, but my goodness, that looked like a rough one.
Yeah, that's I was gonna say, from turn 3 where he's lost it up to 4, it's a lot of distance to travel with that car, so it didn't look like an ideal one. It was either not great or he just a bit of a clumsy mistake, but it's really not great. Now, in Haas's perspective, obviously you want to make sure drivers are safe, but now lots of other cars don't have the same amount of running, so although Hockenberg now doesn't get a chance to go back out again, it means that the other teams won't be able to go out right now, and they will have to wait with the red flag, and that means that Haas can work on this car whilst the session is stopped and maybe have another go. Unfortunately, I can't see this instance, so we can't talk about it. But we can talk about Williams, who has brought a lot of upgrades to this circuit. You said about the floor yesterday, Zingy, but hold on. They also brought upgrades to the top of the car, the roll hoop, and also the side pods as well. So they've got a lot of money into this new car, and they needed to get this testing done, and now they've definitely got one car out of it, definitely out of qualifying, quite possibly out of the race.
Oh, just getting the replay there coming out of turn 3, it looks as though he just lost the car and went into the inside wall, not the outside, the inside wall, coming onto the exit. He's just nicked the grass a little bit, and yeah, that's him round. Really heavy impact. It's not a Tech Pro, it's just kind of like a metal kind of barrier, so that's just going to really wreck his car. And yeah, his rear wing's gone. The chassis seems to be very cracked and broke and bruised, and I'd imagine the floor is also destroyed. So a lot of those parts, do they have spare parts? We talked, at the start of the season about Williams not having spare chassis, and how Albon had to take Sargent's car and stuff like that. So you must think to yourself, at what point can you say no more of these incidents? Because a team like Williams, they don't have much money in comparison to your Ferraris, your McLarens and stuff like that. So
they have the investment of Dalton Capital now, so they're not really in the money side of things, but they're just more behind from the previous years, and from being behind, it's even harder to get back up to the front runners. Now the cost caps come in, everybody's just equal, so you're kind of locked in place, and that's what is really making Williams struggle. That's what they need to try and get on top of. So they can throw all the money at whatever they want, but if it's not going to be the right thing, and if they're not going to be able to keep that on the car without it being damaged, then they're not going to get that data, that development that they actually need. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I think they might, I hope they'd have a spare chassis by the midpoint of the season. There's been plenty of time since that race in Australia where they didn't have that. They're definitely going to have to be doing a lot of repairs. Whether they'll send out the spare chassis if they have it for Logan, that would be probably their next move, and it could already be on its way right now. They'd have possibly called it out already. But if not, and I don't know what the state of the car is, so if they were to keep that chassis, then they would probably go back to old parts, and they'd have to fly those parts out from the factory in Grove. So yeah, Williams team, not only on track but also from the factory, has got a lot of work on their hands right now, not only this weekend but also throughout the rest of the week, where they're going to have to be doing some repairs. So yeah, that's not an ideal situation for the team. It's also not ideal for the likes of Red Bull, who haven't had any of their cars out on circuit just yet. So they're going to be losing out a little bit. Also, Hamilton isn't out on track. And Ferrari of Leclerc. We've had a couple of other cars who haven't actually set complete laps. That's Hulkenberg, Zhou, Sainz, Sonoda, Gasly, Ocon. So they have all gone out. So has Leclerc actually, but they just didn't get any timed sectors or laps. So they've missed out. The time is still going down, obviously, as it's a practice session. It's not like it's a race session where the timers stop, unless that's just something that's on my screen and maybe the session is stopped. I don't know how, if that works thingy. Is it still running?
Yeah, the clock will still be running for practice, and even if there's red flags or VSCs, they don't stop it unless there's I think they can stop it if there's been no running, and they just want to before the session, if there's rain or if there's something that's gone wrong, they need to stop it before the session. But during it, I think they need to just continue on the session, because obviously you've got your other series like the Porsche Super Cup, you've got F2, you've got F3, you've got stuff like that. So they can't really afford to hold up time, and that's why I think that's one of the many reasons that they just don't pause the sessions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it does mean that everyone gets less time, but as I said earlier, Haas, they will kind of not get an advantage, but be in less of a worse situation. So yeah, we don't know how long this red flag will be. We'll wait to see when we can go, not racing, but back on track from the FIA in a few moments' time, hopefully. But they are going to have to do quite a lot of repairs to the circuit right now, as it's a corner that you can really easily lose the car at, so they do have to spend the time. I say, I was saying earlier on, I'm surprised how far they travelled, but if it is wet conditions, you get on the traction and you could just maybe get a little bit too much wheel spin and keep going. If it's not raining, you shouldn't have that issue, but obviously it is raining right now, or it's a wet session at least, and that's what's happened to Logan maybe. Yeah, we'll see after on the replay. If you don't have the coverage like me, that's what you have to do. Just wait for later on, and then we will be able to find out what has gone on with that car. But right now we've got about 37 minutes left on the clock for practice, and it's quite a bit of time, obviously the majority of the session to complete, but right now nothing can be done. Whilst nothing can be done, Zingy, Mick Schumacher, Jack Doohan. Mick Schumacher didn't get into that Alpine seat, and Jack Doohan did. Do you think that was the right call from Alpine?
I think that obviously Mick, the first year in F1, had an abysmal car. He couldn't do anything with it, and in that second season he finally was able to compete, but he was a year behind on competing with people other than his teammate. So I'm not sure. I think doing it is a good option because we've seen from Schumacher he was good, but he wasn't spectacular. And I think that giving people an opportunity to do well is something you need to do, especially at a team with Alpine who have fumbled amazing talent with Oscar Piastri, as you know, Fernando Alonso. They don't want to lose another young driver who could be amazing. So that's why they've taken this opportunity to snap up doing. And I think if it does go well, they could have a driver that's capable of doing as well as Piastri, if they're given the car, of course.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the young talent of Fernando Alonso, just such a big loss to the team. Aston Martin picked him up and he got some pretty good success in that team. Now, they are topping the times. I was going to say they're not actually having the best of seasons. They're not, but they are topping the times right now, which is some glory that they can get from this red flag, of course. Just pretend that the one of the Mercedes and the Red Bulls haven't been out on track yet, and then look at the situation right now. You can dream that it's real. But yeah, Aston Martin not exactly having the run that they want this season compared to last. Of course, if you look at last season, it was exceptional. The gain in performance that they had was awesome. So then to go back to this position, if they probably went back to this position before, they probably would be, you know what, like, this is fine. But going from fighting for podiums mid-season then to losing out a little bit, still being close-ish, but not really being too close. They just don't have that development race, and that's what we thought would happen. With their new factory, they need to get used to it. It's not going to be easy, and they're not going to have that same progress. They just had a bit of a breakthrough in 2023. But they will be, hopefully, for 2025, using this 24 season to learn about things, and then they can definitely improve in 2025 when everybody's going to bunch up even more. We've had a close enough season so far, and it's going to get even, or it should get even closer, unless a team finds an absolute gem of an upgrade that no one else can think of. But then we'll have a new regulation change, and it's a shame because Aston Martin will be able to utilise their factory, especially for that regulation change. But Fernando Alonso, I don't think he'll be there. I don't know what you think, Zingy, but Fernando Alonso, I think that was his last contract that he signed, so he will stop in 2025 and won't see it into 26.
I don't know, because Alonso's like, although he's 42, and he will be 43 come 2025. There's something about him that, like, he just keeps coming back, doesn't he? Like when he retired in 2018, he came back, and I think he will keep on racing till his late 40s. Whether that be in F1, I'm not sure, but I know I hope that Fernando Alonso does race on for a few more seasons, and whatever that may be, I'm not sure, but I think someone as special as him, who can take a car to places it shouldn't be, I think he needs to stay here for a while, and obviously it's his decision, but he needs to recognise that talent that he's still got, and if he wants to continue racing, he should, but obviously when you're 42 years old, you know, it's middle age, you know, you're not getting younger. I think I said that a lot yesterday, and obviously Fernando is, he's very successful, but Aston Martin don't really, they're like McLaren in a way where although McLaren developed a good car, they just can't seem to win much, and Aston Martin's the same way where they develop a good car and can deliver good results, but they can't make that final push. And if Fernando wants to compete for wins, I think it's a bit too late now, as you say.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a lot of criticism this season over his performance. It's not been quite as good as it was. He's been a lot closer to Lance Stroll, whether that's Lance Stroll getting used to the car and improving, or whether it's Alonso having problems. We don't know, and we will never know. We can only assume. But yeah, Alonso definitely seems to not have as good form as they did in 23. It's not bad though, as you can see. He's still doing a good job in that car, still getting it where it should be. It's just that he's maybe not excelling as he did in 2023, notably at this race last year. he was fighting at the front in the wet conditions, which was awesome to see. For a moment or two, people were speculating, could he get into the lead of the Grand Prix, but in the end it didn't really come to anything. And that Red Bull was just a little bit too quick, I think. I can't quite remember. I think there was a safety car in pit stops or whatever. I think George Russell maybe got it right or wrong, but then anyway, it didn't go the way we thought it would, and Max Verstappen took another victory in that season. But Alonso, I really do want to see him go 1 year at least into the new regulations. That would be great, not only for everyone, but it would be great for the team as well, because then they can get that extra experience going into a new regulation change that they'll probably need. If they now go to a different driver, they've not only got to try and learn how that driver operates, the driver's got to learn how the team operates. They're now going to get less experience to help them out. That is absolutely crucial. I think they really do want to sign him. I think they should sign him. Even if he's maybe not to the standard he was at in 2023, his knowledge will still be absolutely phenomenal. And they do need that in that team. Who else would replace Alonso if they did? I think it has to be said, well, it's either going to be Drugovich or it's going to be Yuki Tsunoda. And I think Yuki Tsunoda would be the favourite because of the engine supplier. Yuki Tsunoda started in 2021. He's got a few seasons in him, but just compared to Fernando Alonso, not only is it more years, but also it's championship years and multiple teams of experience for Fernando Alonso. He's got, McLaren, Renault, Alpine, Renault again as well, Minardi, but that was his first years, and that was a long time ago, so he's probably forgotten that. But yeah, he's gone through a lot of teams. Ferrari as well, how could I forget? It's so much experience over regulation change, over team changes. He knows exactly what to do. They need him in that team.
I'm just watching what's going on in the pit lane, and the car of Sargent has came back as they are repairing the track to get it going once again, and you can just see it's still smoking, and the Williams mechanics are frantically trying to put tape and a cover over the car so other teams can't see it, but it's all a big mess in the pit lane. They just can't seem to get the car back to the pits where they want it to be. And they're just going down the pit lane displaying this Williams car with all its new upgrades, maybe try to help the other teams understand what the new parts are. But yeah, I think they're just going for some precautionary checks right now to make sure the track is okay, and we should be getting underway within, I'd say, 5 minutes, maybe upwards of 8 if it's a bit longer. We have to wait, but yeah, there's not going to be much practice for these teams, so for qualifying that'll make it very interesting.
Yeah, I'll definitely mix up the grid. That'll be great for qualifying. It should be an exciting one. With a lot of heavy downforce as well, it means that the cars will be absolutely sending it. And yesterday when I did see the live feed, we could see that at the start of the practice session, everyone was just kind of driving here and there and just having fun. Not only were they racing at the end of the session, but they were absolutely sending it, and it looked really, really cool. And for qualifying, that's exactly what we're going to see. Now, I've just seen a picture of the car that Logan has crashed, and that looks very, very nasty. The front nose is kind of split in two. And the chassis is effectively, not the chassis, the underside of the nose is exposed. And as you said, Zingy, they're just kind of displaying it to all the other teams. They've got those upgrades, and you want to keep them as secret as you can for as long as you can. And would you believe it? The first race that they've got their upgrades, they've just shown it to everyone. So, you know, they were excited about that, and unfortunately, it's just gone down the pan. And the other teams might get involved and see if they can get on top of that. And I think it was last season, Red Bull said that they kind of were looking at the Williams car. I don't know if it would have been on the aspect of the floor, because I believe back then they said their floor was a little bit simpler. But considering they were still able to be where they were with a simpler floor compared to other teams, they actually did a pretty good job if you really think about it. So now they've got the more detailed floor. we won't get to see the full performance of it, especially with the situation that they're in. They've got not as much practice as they would have liked in the wet conditions as well, which would be useful to see. You'd get to see a lot more grip if they were able to make that floor work. Now they're going to have to wait till Monza, and Monza is going to be a circuit that you don't really need as much downforce compared to Zandvoort. So this is a perfect circuit to look at how the floor's working to its maximum, whereas Monza, it's going to be good, but it's going to be more about aerodynamic efficiency, which isn't going to be what they wanted to do, at least with Logan's car. Will they get him into the race tomorrow? I think they can, but qualifying, I would be very surprised if they can get him into the session. We haven't got confirmation about the session starting yet, so they're still repairing that barrier, unfortunately. But we're just waiting, hoping for a bit of detail to come back. That would be great, FIA. Thank you very much. And then, yeah, we should be able to go racing once again at some point soon. Now, just looking to see what other teams I can pick on. We talked about Aston Martin, we've talked about McLaren a little bit yesterday, we talked about Williams a lot. I'm going to go to Mercedes. We did talk about Mercedes a little bit because they had a pretty decent car and they were up there at the end of the session, but more about the other side of the team, their kind of driver lineup, I should say. I really don't see Kimi Antonelli making it to that seat, but they seem to still have him on the radar. I don't think it's a bad idea, I just think it's a really risky idea, but I really don't know who they would want to get in. There was rumours that Bottas would go back to that Mercedes seat, but he wants 2 years, and they want to give him 1 year, possibly. Whether that's a truth or not, I don't know. But other options, I don't know where they would go, Zingy. Would they go maybe to another junior driver but that's just got a little bit more experience? Or would they try and look somewhere else, maybe even another category? Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's weird because Mercedes are usually a team that like to get their drivers in early, so there's no speculation. Everyone feels comfortable. But this is like one of the first times, I think, in a long while that Mercedes just haven't confirmed their drivers in a seat. I think the last time was actually, again, Lewis Hamilton. I think, what was it? Was it 2020 or 2021?
I think it's 2021.
Where he didn't confirm a contract until later on. But that was, we kind of expected that to happen anyway. We expected him to sign that contract, and obviously him going to Ferrari means that one of the best seats on the grid at the moment is available, and for who that may be, I'm not sure. Of course, Kimi being part of that program is going to be very good, and for him, and I think it's going to be difficult to see who gets it, because it could be anyone. It could be Antonelli, it could be another junior driver, it could be an already experienced driver on the grid. There's some people that have contracted and out of drive this year, and maybe they can bring others back. You know, maybe stuff with that Van Dorn could I see.
Yeah, I mean, it would, once again, they would be looking to offer at least a 1 year contract. And I think they would be considering Antonelli, but depending on his performance in F2. If I'm correct in saying, I think they were waiting till September to make a bit more of a firmer decision. But I think you've got to wait the whole season now. You've waited this long already. You've got to just wait the whole season, see who is on top. And I don't think someone like Stoffel Van Dorn, maybe even Esteban Gutierrez, but I don't know if he's got the license points for that now, to take that seat. They would once again, as I say, maybe offer Stoffel a 1 year contract and let Kimi have another season in F2 if he doesn't do as they're hoping. And whether Stoffel will want to take that 1 year contract or not, I don't know. But if he does, and then once again Kimi doesn't have the performance that Mercedes are looking for, then Stoffel Van Dorn, he could possibly find himself with a extension and be somehow back on the grid, which is a massive turn, which I didn't expect, unless somebody else on the grid would think, you know what, I might fancy my chances now at this team. Would I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm going to throw it out there. Would Mercedes go for Kevin Magnussen? I
You
don't
know,
think they would. Unfortunately, I think Kevin Magnussen's got to go and maybe follow his father into IMSA, or possibly, I don't know where else he would go. Maybe, would he go to Indy? I'm not sure.
yeah, well, I just threw a random name out there, but you never know at this point. Anyone could get that seat. From Stoffel Van Dorn to Kimi Antonelli to Mick Schumacher. I think the main man is Antonelli, of course, but everyone else is, it's hard to say right now. Let's just say that it's hard to speak on it because we don't really know what's going to be happening.
Yeah, for sure. Mick Schumacher is an interesting choice. They've got good relationship with him. Whether he's got more of a relationship now with Alpine contract-wise, I'm not entirely sure, but I think Mercedes still would be good friends with him regardless. Would he be what they were looking for over Kimi Antonelli, just to get that experience, maybe a stopgap, or maybe actually kind of long-term driver? I don't quite know. Considering the reputation that they unfortunately got themselves in that season. I'll be back in a bit.
Yeah, of course. It's going to be difficult for the drivers' market right now. Of course, I don't know. It's definitely a difficult situation to be part of right now, especially within the team, because you don't really know how you're going to work your way through it. You don't have a driver confirmed for next season. Of course, you will need a driver for next season. However, the issue is who's actually going to be there. And we've obviously speculated a few drivers. They can't re-sign Hamilton, he's going to Ferrari. And yeah, I think I'm not too sure really when it comes to it.
Why don't they sign Liam Lawson or Daniel Ricciardo? Pick up who doesn't get that seat. That could be an idea. Maybe that's what they're waiting for, really. They're telling us that they're waiting for Antonelli, but they actually want Antonelli at this point to have another season in F2, and they would pick up the other Red Bull driver. Obviously, Red Bull wouldn't want to give them up, but I don't know if they would really have a choice. I think either driver would jump at that seat and take it immediately to make sure that they stay in the team. You've got Liam Lawson, who could be a long-term future. They've also got experience in another team. They've got a lot of experience in racing overall. They're not exactly the youngest, but they're not old, so they're going to have quite a few years in them. And then Daniel Ricciardo has got experience in winning cars, so he can definitely help the team. Not fully replace Hamilton, who's not only been in a winning car, but also winning championship winning car. But it's still a good amount of experience to then combine from a different background as well, completely different background. You get kind of a Mercedes Academy, a Ferrari Academy, a Red Bull Academy, then you've got the kind of McLaren and Alpine that are on their own almost. So yeah, the different academy side of things. And Daniel Ricciardo, who also drove at Renault and McLaren, it would be a lot of experience that Mercedes could use. Not necessarily that they would need, but they could definitely use it and help. But more importantly, does Daniel Ricciardo suit that Mercedes? Because we know that he didn't suit that McLaren car and couldn't really perform in it. Maybe that's something that Mercedes would be worrying about. Daniel Ricciardo's performed pretty well compared to the McLaren in his racing ball right now, but is he performed to a level that we expected? I'm not sure. It's not been bad. He's had that P4, I think, in Miami, which bumped him up quite nicely. Yuki Tsunoda's been there, but just the good results from Yuki Tsunoda, but then the bad results can be really bad, whereas the results from Ricciardo are maybe just not as spectacular in some areas, but the good results are just as good as Tsunoda's. I may be waffling and completely forgetting, and maybe just remembering last season instead of this season incorrectly, but I believe that's maybe the case. Still, no confirmation on when the session will be starting. We've only got 16 minutes left. I really do want to make sure that the circuit is safe. So we are good to go back on track. It's taken them a long old time to get that done, so that crash must have been pretty hard, and not exactly ideal for everyone. I do wonder if Haas have managed to get Hulkenberg's car in a good state to go back out on track, if it was possible at all. We'll see.
I wouldn't worry, Aaron. I've just received a video from the arena section, and it looks as though that they've got someone singing. So
they've got entertainment.
Yeah. Therefore, showed me that there's someone singing on the the big stage. I think it's on the inside of the corner. He showed me, and so at least the fans have got some entertainment around that part of the track. But otherwise, it doesn't really look like there's much going on. Red flag still, as you say, no confirmation. So we're just gonna have to wait. And let's see, will the session get underway once again? I'm starting to doubt it. I think if there will be, it'll only be about 10 minutes. But is that right? Like, obviously, every lap's better. Every single lap you do is valuable information for. So I don't know. It'll be difficult, but I think it will get underway. But there won't be much time left, and I think that will really mess with some teams like Red Bull, who've got 0 running in this session, mind you. Mercedes with Hamilton, who's not got any running, and Ferrari, who have not got any running at all.
Yeah, I think looking at the situation and looking at the time, of course, it's getting closer to qualifying. Whether the conditions are going to be the same as they are now in qualifying, I don't know. But you don't really have enough time to go for any race runs, let's be honest. You're going to be dreaming if that's the case. If they do get that 10 minutes, they're just going to have to go for a quali test and just get the car dialed in and hope that a car that they can kind of dial up for quali can then be good enough for a race. But that might make it very, very spicy for tomorrow, which is good for the sports perspective, but from the technical perspective, it's not exactly ideal. We might not see the maximum performance in the cars and not really see who is the fastest car on track. But right now, McLaren, although we said that they've had some kind of tactical blunders in the past of maybe mixing up in Hungary, etc., they've done a very good job so far in practice. They've got their cars out on track, they've got some decent laps in, and they're going to be very happy with that. Haas with Magnussen, he did get a joint most laps in this session, so he's managed to get some good running. I think he also did a wet tyre run, but the Inters seem to be where it's at. It's an interesting one, and well, the least experienced team is Red Bull. They have absolutely nothing, and we're still not getting any confirmation of whenever the session is going to be returning. So it's going to be once again very, very difficult for all the teams, and I don't know who would get pole at this stage without any further setup changes. Of course, we had a wet kind of to dry session, then that dry session yesterday. So they do have that experience, and if you think over to a sprint weekend, it is kind of like a similar situation where they just get that less practice. But I think there's some sort of Parc Fermé rules where it's kind of released and you're allowed to make further setup changes, whether that be for qualifying or after the sprint race. I don't quite know. I can't quite remember. But it's kind of like something that they've kind of been prepared for a few times this season, so they might not be in too bad of a situation. But really it's not what you're looking for, because they might have been relaxing yesterday, might have been thinking, you know what, we can do it for FP3. As a team, you have to be ready for a red flag to really come in, so they've got to probably get the most important stuff out the way early on in a weekend to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen, because it's happened, and now people would be in trouble if they did try and risk it. But now 12 minutes, and it's not getting any better. It looks like it might just be a kind of podcast thing from me and Zingy talking about the teams. Absolute waffle. But yeah, no running on circuit. let's have a look at the lap times as we can. We've got a 1:21.461 from Fernando Alonso, and then we've got Oscar Piastri 3 tenths behind, almost 4 tenths. Then for almost 5 tenths from Stroll, followed by a 1.0 second gap from Magnussen, and then we've got Logan Sargent, who crashed out with a 1.8 second gap. So those cars, the faster cars were up front. They did more laps on those tyres, where the cars that are further behind, they've all done more or less laps on those tyres. Daniel Ricciardo kind of joined up there with Lance Stroll. But yeah, it seems like the more laps you've done, the more the faster you'll go. Oscar seemed to be incredibly quick in the first and second sector, but just maybe had a mistake in that third sector. They did have a mistake, or they had to back off for the yellow flags. I didn't quite get to see that, and I don't quite remember that far back, unfortunately. But yeah, they've had a big mistake in that last sector, so they weren't able to complete that lap. But if I look at the lap that they were on to do, they would have been about 6 tenths ahead, maybe more, of Alonso's lap time. They would have probably been more, because if they got that final sector in correctly, then they would have been in a very good position. So that McLaren is very quick. In Lando, I assume, would have been able to get to that position as well. They didn't quite go as fast as Alonso did in that third sector, though. Didn't go as fast as Alonso in any of their sectors. Is that going to be a session resuming in about 5 minutes' time? Brilliant. Now,
yeah,
that'll be good.
Yeah, 5 minutes' time it's going to be restarting, I think. Should say on your screen, maybe.
Yeah, it does say.
That's what Crofty just said on the stream right now. 12:25 local time, so yeah, that'll be 11:25 for UK timing, and we'll have 5 minutes. Well, 5 minutes, guys, at the end.
Wow, this is going to be crazy. There's going to be a lot of traffic, and there's going to be a qualifying run, I assume. I don't know what the weather's like, Zingy, but yeah. Looking at Haas, they can send you out there whenever, and we can switch off, but we can sit for 2 minutes with the engine running. So they're not really sure what they should do. Might not actually do it. They're thinking that maybe they wouldn't actually start the session, possibly, but restart is one. They might not actually do it. He's thinking that maybe they're not going to restart the session, even though they're saying that they are. So they're wondering if they go out of the pit lane or not, and wait for the session to start so they can get that qualifying running.
Right. It does say we'll resume at local time, but it's to be confirmed. So
I see.
It might actually not start, and that's why I think the teams are hesitant about sending their cars out. Now, there's one car on track. It's Logan Sargent. Unfortunately, he's had a bit of an incident. I did just see
out
there.
On track.
Well,
out.
Okay, right. I don't think they're going to restart the session now. 8.5 minutes to go. They've still got about, what was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles. The 6 vehicles. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 vehicles. 2 of them are. One of them's a truck. One of them's a tractor, from what I can see. And then you've got other cars and SUVs and stuff like that. So they're gonna have to get rid of those within 3 minutes. I mean, you know how difficult it's gonna be for those bigger vehicles to get out of the way. So I don't know if they will get the session started. I think it'll just be a 45-minute yap session. Very nice.
Indeed. Whilst we wait, Zingy, I said yesterday we're going to do the predictions again. We're going to decide. I can't remember what order we decided yesterday, but I'll check ready for qualifying later, so we have them in front of us. But who's your prediction for qualifying going to be now?
I'm not going to change it. What did I say? I said Hamilton, followed by the 2 McLarens of Lando and Oscar. I think it's still going to be that. If I'm wrong, I look very stupid because I'm committing to it. But I do think, I don't know, something just comes alive in Hamilton when the qualifying starts, and when the sessions really matter and the pressure's on for Hamilton, you do notice that he's able to perform exceptionally. Just like 2008, 2021. you've got all those times where he was in a very dire situation and he still performed his best. Obviously in 2021 not winning, but you could just still see the quality of the driver that he actually is. So I think when the pressure's on, he magically gains a 10 for 2, and I think if that's the case, he could go for pole.
He could do. He could do. I think now I'm looking at the situation. I think that is a very good option. That being said, he doesn't have any time in this session so far, and it looks like he might not actually, because we've still got a to be confirmed. The Haas were the last on the radio, as we know, to communicate with one another about that session. But yeah, my prediction was it was Piastri, Verstappen, Hamilton, I believe it was. It was definitely Piastri looking to go on pole, and right now, out of all the cars, he's currently fastest out of the 3 that I've mentioned. So I'm gonna, if Singy's gonna stay where he is, I'm gonna stay where I am as well, and we'll get that prediction and see who's ready later. Session will resume at 27, so they're gonna have 3 minutes on the clock. Is there actually any point?
Well, you could get one lap in where the track's drying up.
It's
And it
gonna be
looks so
cold though.
Haas. Oh yeah, but that's just a caveat of it being wet, isn't it? So yeah, so Haas. Oh, hold on. Mercedes did come out. They've been pushed back in. They're going to put the power blankets back over the tyres, not on the tyres, which is a very important detail. So they will be coming out. Sauber coming out. Haas are about to come out as well. They're not out yet, but they are getting ready. Obviously, 27 local time. It still does say to be confirmed, but it might not be. But we could have 3 minutes of some good action here, hopefully.
Yeah, it will be a really chaotic run. It's actually still to be confirmed, I think. So it might not even start again, but it looks like people are just gonna go for it. Now everyone's getting ready. Lots of people are on the radio, the Alpines and the Racing Bulls as well. Alpine with Esteban Ocon looking to do one-time lap based on how many people are waiting to go, but we'll push for 2, they said. So that's an interesting one. Other teams are going to be probably looking for the same thing. If they're pushing for 2, however, I don't think anyone will get 2, and I think everyone will just be getting 1. I think, honestly, that is just a decision that everyone is going to have to be happy with and making. But yeah, oh, Red Bull, are they not going out? Sergio Perez says that they're switching off.
Sergio Perez might be switching off, but I think Max Verstappen's going to go out unless they've said something on the transmission radio thing you can see there in front of you. I think Verstappen will come out.
Oh, another
McLaren looks so they're
confirmation.
about to be...
Sorry, Zing, another confirmation. Session will resume at 28, confirmed. So we'll have 2 minutes, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh,
And we
sorry.
can go.
Just chewing there. Yeah, they're all coming out. Mercedes, McLaren, 2 Saubers, 2 Haas, 2 Alpine. It looks so smooth to try to sneak into the queue there, but being at the end of the pit lane is a real kick in the jugular, especially for these drivers. Perez is out, Aaron. Perez is out. He's coming out.
Okay, fair
Yeah,
enough
the
then.
engine's not being switched off. Oh, I think the whole grid's out. Hold on a minute. 1 Williams, 2 Ferrari, 2 Red Bull, 1 Aston Martin from what I can see. There's a lot of people queuing up at the end of the pit lane. I think it's going to be a race more than anything to get to the line before the time runs out. 2 minutes. The track time is 1 minute, well, let's say 1 minute 20 because it probably has ramped up a bit. So I don't think many people are going to make it out for a lap. If they want to make a lap, I don't think there's going to be many people who can.
No, it's going to be a very difficult one. Remember, you're ahead of these cars in the flow lane right now. You're ahead of all of them. I think that AI maybe got that wrong, or I just can't read. Probably I can't read. But yeah, 30 seconds until we go racing, they are saying. Although, according to our timing, they can go now. So we'll find out in a second when those cars go out. 15 seconds now for the McLarens, they say. Well, everyone's saying 15 seconds. And we are all out on track once again. So the Haas's go up first, as expected, and then from the Saubers to the Alpines. So the Haas's, and more importantly, Nico Hülkenberg is going to be able to go first. And we could see on the radio that they agreed that Magnussen was going to let Hülkenberg go. So those guys have been in a very good position, but everyone else, Norris up to Leclerc, they're all so close together. This is going to be crazy, Zingy. Can you see this on circuit? And I'm going to let you talk about it for a bit.
Yeah, just looking at it now, we can see that Max Verstappen just overtook someone in the pit lane exit. You can't be doing that. I don't think that's legal. He's went over the white line with 2 tyres from what I can see anyway. If not, it was very close. It looks so Verstappen, yes, he is. He's trying to rush through, get a lap in, because remember, Red Bull have no laps. 0. Nil point. Nothing. So these guys need to push, get a lap in, and even if it's only 1 lap, they can feel it. Let's see a replay here. Oscar Piastri done up the inside by Max Verstappen on pit exit. Not even like the actual pit exit before the corner. He's went around the outside of Russell, and yes, that front left tyre has went over the right line, so I think he will get punished for that. Whether that be a penalty or just a warning or a fine, I'm not sure, but the first move was fine on Piastri. He was staying within what I'd assume to be the white lines anyway. He goes around the outside of Russell, and you can just see that his front left creeps over the edge there. So yeah, Max Verstappen could be in trouble. The commentators are talking about a fine, so they could be in mega trouble. Verstappen tries to overtake Hamilton and fails. It looks so Hamilton himself is going to go for a move on the Ferrari. Verstappen losing the back end. It's coming onto the main straight now. It's Ferrari and Mercedes side by side up to the line. It looks as though these guys are racing for position into turn 1. It looks as though the Ferrari of I don't know who that Ferrari is. I think it's Leclerc who's going to go up the inside of Hamilton, and he's actually made the move stick. I think it's Leclerc, yeah, who's made the move on Hamilton, and Verstappen is just behind him, pushing as hard as he could to try and get up to that Mercedes. And it's like a race out here. It's like a race.
Yeah, I think instead of a qualifying run for the cars in the middle of the pack, it's more of a lap 1 test, although Russell slowed down to let the other cars go. He's given up. Perez didn't make it, and everyone else behind him didn't actually make it. They wasted too much time and ended up losing out. There's, of course, the 2 Haas's and effectively the Alpines and the Saubers will all get a qualifying run in, but I think everyone from Norris to Russell, and everyone from Norris to everyone behind won't be able to get too much useful data. Magnussen goes fastest as Hülkenberg moves up. That's Zhou going to be right there, and Bottas takes P2. You're going to have Gasly go fastest in the end, and Ocon will go up there. Norris P4. We're going to get Carlos getting their next lap in. Hamilton, Verstappen and Leclerc. Piastri will be the final one, but it probably won't be competitive. And that will be that. Qualifying practice is done. Alonso, were they even out on track? Did they not even bother, it looked like?
No, he didn't come out on track.
Yeah, so they didn't bother. They set a fair few laps before. Unfortunately, we've been joined in the commentary box by a barking dog. But that is the practice session done, and a lot of people are going to be very disappointed with that. I think that is once again, not once again, I'm just going to go over it again. Perez not being able to set a lap, and the same for Tsunoda. Ricciardo did set a lap. It wasn't really a competitive one, but they actually got a timed lap in, although it doesn't seem to have timed their first sector. It does seem that they have been able to get their stuff together. It's not exactly a fast one, but yeah, we've got Racing Bull and Red Bull in a very bad state at the moment, but at least they got to practice lap 1 of the race, and more importantly for Haas, they've managed to get those final runs in for qualifying. So maybe if Hülkenberg doesn't get the kind of practice that he needs for the race tomorrow, he'll at least be able to have a little bit of knowledge ready for the qualifying session later on today.
Yeah, we're just looking at a replay once again of that Verstappen double overtake. He finished the session P17. 4 seconds off the pace. Granted, he was behind a plethora of cars, which would hinder his sight and the grip on the tyres. Perez 20th. It's a really bad start to the day for Red Bull, not getting any testing in whatsoever. They got what? Combined 3 laps in. Max with his out lap and his flying lap, and then Perez with only his out lap. So there's a massive issue here for Red Bull, and they need to just pray that their car is fast enough to hopefully get into that, not top 10, because I'm sure they will get into top 10, but the top 5 and maybe top 3, because I don't think Verstappen's going to challenge for Aaron. I don't know about you, but I just can't see it happening.
No, I think it's McLaren's, honestly, with the way practices are gone. I think not because of where they are on the timing stream, but because of the experience that they've managed to get. I think it is going to be the McLarens who will... It's their pole position to lose, I think. I think Mercedes can do it, but I think it is their pole position to lose, if I'll be honest. So, we'll see. Maybe Verstappen can pull something out the bag. Ultimately, he is the man with the most experience around this circuit, taking all the wins so far on return to Zandvoort. But yeah, that's done. And we will be waiting for qualifying to come back and see if we get our predictions right. And we hope that you can join us there. We will say thank you very much. Thank you, Zingy, for the good insight and the on-track knowledge. I'm going to go and see if I can get a replay of everything that happened in the session right there before we get to qualifying. But that was a pretty crazy one. Hopefully we can join you for qualifying in a few hours' time. We'll see you there. Thank you, and bye-bye.